Good evening, everyone. Could you quickly let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there? I'd love to hear from you. Now, let's dive into the first story. The way this story came to me was just as peculiar as the case itself. A friend of mine who shares my fascination with uncanny events began telling me about it one evening over coffee. He started with a question that immediately hooked me. Have you ever thought about faking your own death to escape life's pressures? It sounded like the premise of a movie or a thriller novel, but what followed was a true story of deception, desperation, and unimaginable cruelty. A tale so dark, it could have only come from reality. Shahraban was just 24 years old, a young woman of Iraqi descent living in Germany. Outwardly, her life seemed ordinary, but beneath the surface lay a suffocating reality shaped by cultural expectations and family control. Born into a conservative Muslim family, Shahraban had never known what it meant to truly make her own choices. Her upbringing was defined by strict rules, rigid traditions, and an unrelenting expectation to conform. From a young age, her life had been dictated by others. Every aspect of her existence was controlled: what she wore, where she went, and even what she studied. Dreams of becoming independent or exploring her own passions were dismissed as selfish or ungrateful. Her father's word was law, and her mother, though kinder in tone, was just as strict in enforcing the family's code of conduct. Shahraban often felt more like a prisoner than a daughter. Her parents' restrictions only tightened as she grew older. Simple requests like attending school trips or visiting friends were met with skepticism or outright denial. They questioned her every motive, accusing her of seeking to bring dishonor to the family. Her social life was monitored heavily. Friends were interrogated, phone calls were overheard, and social media was forbidden. The few friendships she managed to maintain were kept alive through whispered conversations and stolen moments. When Shahraban's parents arranged her marriage at the age of 18, she had no say in the matter. Her husband, chosen for his family's reputation rather than his character, quickly revealed himself to be controlling and dismissive. He mocked her aspirations, insisting that her role was to serve him and bear children. For years, she endured his verbal abuse and emotional neglect, growing more desperate for a way out. When her marriage ended in divorce, Shahraban returned to her parents' home, hoping for some semblance of support. Instead, she was met with shame and anger. Her father frequently reminded her that her failure reflected poorly on the family, while her mother lamented her bad fortune in having such a disobedient daughter. Her siblings avoided her altogether, treating her like an outcast within her own home. Shahraban's burgeoning relationship with Shekir, her boyfriend, only made matters worse. When her parents discovered that she was seeing someone without their approval, they launched a campaign to control her every move. Her phone was confiscated, and any attempt to use it was met with accusations of deceit. She was forbidden from leaving the house alone, and when she did go out, relatives were sent to shadow her every step. Her father threatened to send her back to Iraq if she continued her disobedience, warning her that she'd be forced into another marriage if she didn't comply. Her mother, in her own passive way, would express disappointment, sighing loudly or crying to guilt Shahraban into submission. Even her extended family got involved, calling to chastise her and remind her of her duty as a daughter to uphold the family's honor. Shahraban was suffocating. The walls of her life were closing in, leaving no room for her dreams, her relationship, or even her sense of self. Every day felt like a battle to keep a sliver of her autonomy. Desperate to escape, she realized that running away wasn't enough. Her Her family would never stop looking for her. They would track her down, drag her back, and punish her for what they would see as the ultimate betrayal. No, she thought. She needed something more permanent, something that would make it impossible for her family to find her. But in order to vanish, someone else would have to take her place. In the depths of her despair, Shahraban's desperation gave birth to a twisted plan. To escape the oppressive grip of her family and finally claim her freedom, she would need to disappear entirely. But not just any disappearance. She needed the world, especially her family, to believe she was dead. She needed a body, someone who could convincingly replace her in death. Someone who looked enough like her to fool the police, her family, and anyone else who might question the narrative. For weeks, Shahraban combed through social media profiles and online communities, searching for her stand-in. Her criteria were specific. The person had to resemble her enough to pass as her twin, or at least as a close match. They needed to be the same age, with similar facial features, height, and build. She sifted through countless accounts, rejecting most immediately, until one day she found Khadija. Khadija was a 23-year-old beauty blogger who shared an uncanny resemblance to Shahraban. Her almond-shaped eyes, high cheekbones, and dark hair mirrored Shahraban's own features almost perfectly. A rising star in the beauty community, Khadija often posted videos and tutorials that showcased her charm and talent. Her posts exuded a warmth and friendliness that made her seem approachable, a perfect target for Shahraban's sinister scheme. Shahraban's next step was to make contact. She created a fake Instagram account, posing as a representative of a high-end beauty brand looking for influencers to collaborate with. The account was polished and professional, filled with fake endorsements and testimonials to make it appear legitimate. Using this facade, Shahraban reached out to Khadija with an enticing offer, an exclusive sponsorship deal that could boost her career to new heights. At first, Khadija didn't respond. Shahraban grew impatient, sending follow-up messages filled with flattery and promises of lucrative opportunities. When Khadija finally replied, Shahraban played her role flawlessly, expressing enthusiasm for Khadija's talent and assuring her that she was a perfect fit for the collaboration. She invited Khadija to meet in person to discuss the details. But convincing Khadija wasn't easy. Shahraban had to be persistent, employing every manipulative tactic she could think of. She showered Khadija with compliments, appealed to her ambitions, and even hinted at connections to influential figures in the beauty industry. Eventually, after several back-and-forth messages, Khadija agreed to meet. The date was set. August 16th, 2022. The location was the city of Ingolstadt, where Khadija would supposedly meet with a brand representative to finalize the deal. What Khadija didn't know was that the meeting would seal her fate. Shahraban, with the help of her boyfriend Shakir, was preparing for something far darker than a business discussion. The day of the meeting arrived. Shahraban and her boyfriend Shakir, both dressed in carefully curated attire to appear professional, drove their black Mercedes to the agreed-upon location. As Khadija approached, bright-eyed and full of optimism, they greeted her warmly, masking their sinister intentions with practiced smiles. The drive started innocuously enough, with Shahraban engaging Khadija in light conversation about beauty trends and potential collaboration ideas. Khadija, excited by the possibilities ahead, had no reason to suspect the danger lurking beneath the surface. She didn't notice the growing tension in the air as the car veered off the main road and onto a winding path leading to a secluded forest. When they arrived, the atmosphere shifted. Khadija hesitated, sensing something was wrong. The thick canopy of trees blocked out the sun, casting eerie shadows on the ground. The silence was deafening, broken only by the crunch of gravel under their feet. "This is where we finalize everything," Shahraban said, her voice unusually firm. She gestured toward a small clearing in the woods. Khadija's unease grew, but before she could react, Shakir moved swiftly, grabbing her from behind. "What are you doing?" Khadija screamed, struggling against his grip. Panic surged through her as she realized the danger she was in. Shahraban stood in front of her, no longer wearing the mask of friendliness. Her eyes were cold, devoid of remorse, as she watched Khadija fight for her life. The scene turned gruesome. Together, Shahraban and Shakir committed the unthinkable, silencing Khadija in a brutal act of violence. Her cries for help echoed through the forest, unheard by anyone who could save her. When the struggle finally ended, Khadija lay lifeless on the forest floor. But their cruelty didn't end there. Knowing that a simple murder wouldn't be enough to execute their twisted plan, they set about disfiguring Khadija's face. Using whatever tools they had brought with them, they ensured her features were unrecognizable, making it nearly impossible for anyone to identify her without forensic analysis. Once their gruesome work was complete, they wrapped Khadija's body in a blanket and carried it back to the car. The drive back was silent, the weight of their actions hanging in the air. They parked the Mercedes near Shakir's apartment, leaving the body inside as if it were a grim offering to fate. They knew the next part of their plan would unfold soon enough. By planting the body near Shakir's residence, they hoped to mislead the police and Shahraban's family into believing that it was her lifeless form inside the car. Shahraban's scheme was almost complete. Her family would mourn her death, and she could escape the suffocating constraints of her old life. All she needed now was for the discovery to be made. The discovery of the body in the abandoned Mercedes initially brought a wave of devastation to Shahraban's family. The charred remains bore enough superficial similarities, such as hair length and approximate build, for them to believe it was undoubtedly her. Overcome with grief, the family identified the body as Shahraban, believing she had met a tragic end. The emotional toll was immediate. Tears, wails, and the raw pain of what they thought was the tragic loss of their daughter rippled through their close-knit household. As per standard protocol, however, the authorities initiated a detailed autopsy to confirm the identity of the deceased. It was during this meticulous process that the first unsettling discrepancies began to surface. The forensic team noted subtle differences that raised doubts, such as an older scar on the victim's arm and inconsistencies in dental records provided by the family. These inconsistencies, though subtle, were enough to warrant further scrutiny. The investigators decided to run a DNA analysis for conclusive proof. The results were nothing short of shocking. The DNA did not match Shahraban's. Instead, the tests identified the victim as Khadija, a 23-year-old beauty blogger who had mysteriously disappeared around the same time. This revelation turned the case on its head. What initially seemed to be a tragic death now appeared to be something far more sinister. The realization that someone had orchestrated this elaborate facade left the investigators and Shahraban's family in disbelief. They were now dealing with a case of deliberate deception, with motives cloaked in a web of lies and horror. Determined to uncover the truth, the police launched an extensive investigation, analyzing surveillance footage, communication records, and social media activity. The digital trail revealed Shahraban's disturbing actions, her fabricated social media account, messages to Khadija, and her calculated manipulation. The investigators pieced together the timeline, tracing the victim's last movements to her meeting with Shahraban and Shakir. As the evidence mounted, the police realized they were dealing with a meticulously planned crime. Shahraban and Shakir's attempt to evade capture came to an abrupt end. They were discovered hiding in plain sight at a pizza parlor in Ingolstadt, seemingly going about their lives as if nothing had happened. When the police apprehended them, Shahraban was found clutching Khadija's handbag, a grim trophy from her crime. The arrest sent ripples through the community, leaving those who knew Shahraban stunned by her ability to mask her sinister intentions. Under interrogation, neither Shahraban nor Shakir showed remorse, maintaining an eerie silence. As the investigation deepened, even more chilling details surfaced. It was revealed that Shahraban had approached at least 24 other women before selecting Khadija as her victim. Each woman bore a resemblance to her, as if she were searching for a mirror image to execute her grotesque plan. The investigation uncovered an even darker layer to Shahraban's motives. She had reportedly conducted a disturbing ceremony involving symbolic offerings and invocations, convinced that these acts would protect her from discovery and allow her to begin anew. Ritualistic items were found in her possession, hinting at her attempts to use superstition as part of her escape. Shahraban's descent into darkness revealed depths of malice and cunning that few could have anticipated. Beyond the heinous act of murdering Khadija to fake her own death, evidence emerged suggesting that Shahraban had meticulously plotted to erase anyone who might jeopardize her plan for a new life. One of the most chilling discoveries came when investigators uncovered records of her attempting to hire a hitman. Her primary target, her former brother-in-law. The motive behind this particular choice was rooted in her past, a bitter family feud that she feared might resurface and complicate her escape. By eliminating him, she intended to sever any remaining ties to her old life and silence a voice she believed could expose her secrets. Perhaps the most unsettling revelation was her willingness to use any means necessary to achieve her goals. Messages to Shakir outlined scenarios involving intimidation, bribery, and, if needed, outright elimination. In one particularly haunting message, she wrote, "No loose ends. If they talk, they go." The sheer breadth of her malice stunned the public. What began as an apparent act of desperation to escape her oppressive life had spiraled into a web of calculated cruelty and cold-blooded murder. This horrifying case was now ready to head to trial, where the full scope of Shahraban and Shakir's actions would be laid bare. The revelations sent a clear message about the devastating consequences of unchecked desperation and the depths to which human malice could descend.
I looked at my reflection in the mirror, my eyes fixed on the dark, jagged scar on my cheek. It was ugly. It was the reason I avoided looking at myself. The reason I always felt incomplete, like there was something missing. I had never been beautiful, not in the way other girls were. That scar made sure of it. It was the mark of my ugliness, the thing that made people avoid me, and I hated it. But then there was Noah. He saw me. Not the scar, not the flaws, just me. When he smiled at me for the first time, the world felt different. For once, I felt like I wasn't invisible. Noah was the first person to ever make me feel noticed, wanted, loved. He was reckless, wild, unapologetic. But in his eyes, I was everything. And in that moment, I felt like I was finally enough. That Christmas Eve, Noah pulled me close, his lips brushing against mine in a sweet kiss.
"You're perfect, Callie,"
he whispered.
"No one else matters. It's just you and me."
His words melted me, and I believed him. As the days went by, I became more and more wrapped up in Noah. I couldn't help myself. His charm, his bad boy smile, the way he looked at me, it was all consuming. I let go of everything, my friends, my life before him. Because with Noah, I finally felt like I mattered, like I was important. But things started to change. Noah wasn't the perfect boyfriend I thought he was. The first time I caught him with another girl, I was crushed. Her name was Nicole, and she was everything I wasn't. Beautiful, confident, everything I wished I could be. He apologized, of course. He promised me it was a mistake, that I was the only one he cared about. And because I loved him so much, I forgave him. But the doubt lingered in the back of my mind. The second time was different. I found him with another girl, this time Irene. They were in his car, laughing together, their hands all over each other. I saw it all, and my heart shattered. I left. I couldn't stand to be near him. I stayed away for 3 days, trying to clear my head, trying to forget. But I couldn't. I couldn't forget Noah, no matter what he did. When he came to me, holding a bouquet of white roses, I knew I couldn't resist. His apologies felt so real, so sincere. He begged me to take him back, to trust him again. And I did. I always did. But then came Cynthia. I found them again, in his car, together. The betrayal hurt more than before. I was losing control of everything. I couldn't even stop myself from crying. I stood there in the dim light of the bathroom, my hands trembling as I wiped away the blood. It was still warm, sticky against my skin, staining the white towel I was holding. My mind was a blur, every thought muddled by the chaos of what had just happened. Noah was beside me, pressing a single kiss between my shoulder blades, nothing left to say between us. By this time, the missing posters for Nicole had long washed away in the spring rains, and Irene's family still thought she had moved back to Chicago. I wondered how long it would take the search for Cynthia to begin. Noah held me as I cried on the new sheets we'd gone out and bought from Walmart that evening, old ones too blood-soaked to do anything but burn them. We watched the bonfire, hand in hand. I tipped my head back, watching the sparks struggle for the sky, wishing I could leave with them. The girls kept coming. He couldn't help himself. They were beautiful, and I was not. They were bright, just like him. Couldn't stay away from the way he burned either. The months passed, all that blood mixed with love. I grew numb to it, but could never stop the anger and the jealousy and the sadness. It consumed me. I grew used to washing the blood from the walls of the trailer, to laying my anger to sleep in the pit of my stomach until the next time, until the next girl. I'd count the mornings I woke up alone, wondering how I had become this. I no longer hid the mark on the left side of my face when I looked in the mirror, was glad the ugly showed, a warning sign to the world. It was Christmas again, and the air was crisp and cold as the world outside seemed to glow with twinkling lights. And I'd seen the way Noah had been looking at Jenny, the girl who lived next door. She was only 17, the same age I'd been when I first met him, before I'd become this terrible thing, letting the darkest places in our lives swallow me whole. But Jenny was different. She was sweet, and she was kind. She loved animals, doted on her little brothers. Sometimes she would come sit with me in the lawn chairs out front, and I'd let her smoke my menthols and we'd talk until the streetlights came on. I didn't want Jenny to get hurt, didn't want her to end up like those other girls. But I saw the way Noah's eyes would follow her when she walked past our windows. I tried to warn her, for my own sake as much as hers. I yelled, told her to stay away from Noah or there would be trouble. But that evening I walked in on them in our bed. The tears came, like that first time. I tried to tell her, it wasn't my fault. You promised, Noah. You promised. My voice was dull in the silence of the room, Jenny's dying breaths the only other sound as Noah pulled his hunting knife from her stomach, parting the soft skin like a deer belly. Out of all the girls he'd killed, she'd been the youngest. He held my face in his hands, blood spreading across my right cheek. I looked over his shoulder to the mirror. Both sides of my face marked out, one by an angel and one by the devil.
I'm sorry.
He said, taking my hands in his bloody ones. I'd have to wash them clean now, but I knew that stains like this never really come out. You carry them with you wherever you go. You can try to bury them, but they always grow back. A warning to the world that goes unseen. The real ugliness is the one we make ourselves. Two shoulders meeting in the dark. Two hearts keeping time. The worst part for me wasn't the blood, and the lying, and the fear. It wasn't knowing where the bodies were buried. It was the way he always chose them over me. The way I was never enough for him. Never beautiful enough or bright enough. Always second choice, always second best. But I love him still.
My name is William, and I work at a bar that caters to women, filled with male dancers. It's a lively place, with music pulsing through the air and laughter echoing off the walls. But for me, it's a nightmare. I'm gay, and every night I watch the women fawn over the dancers, their eyes sparkling with excitement, while I feel a wave of disgust wash over me. I can't stand my job. The whole environment feels toxic, and I often find myself longing for something more authentic, something real. Despite my disdain for the bar, there is one bright spot in my life. Dennis Nielsen. He's a friendly taxi driver who often stops by the bar after his shifts. We've struck up a casual friendship, and he sometimes offers me free rides home when our shifts overlap. He's easy to talk to, and he always manages to make me smile, which is a rare thing these days. Over time, I've developed a crush on him, though I've kept it hidden, fearing the potential awkwardness of confessing my feelings. One evening, as I was getting ready to leave the bar, Dennis approached me with his usual warm smile. "Hey, William," he said, "would you like to come over for a drink? I could use some good company." My heart raced at the invitation. Could it be that he felt something for me too? I accepted, excitement and nerves swirling in my stomach. When we arrived at his place, I was a bit taken aback. Despite his polished exterior, his home was cluttered and dimly lit, with an unpleasant odor lingering in the air. It felt suffocating, yet I couldn't judge him. If I weren't working at this degrading job, I might be living in a place that was worse. As Dennis went into the kitchen to prepare some drinks, I noticed a cardboard box in the corner of the room. Curiosity got the better of me, and I couldn't help but peek inside. To my surprise, it was filled with identical striped shirts. It struck me as odd, but I shrugged it off, thinking it might just be one of his quirks. When Dennis returned with the drinks and snacks, he casually gesturing toward the box and suggested I change into something more comfortable. I hesitated, but then agreed, intrigued. When I went to the bathroom to change, I thought about how nice it would be to have a relaxed evening with him. However, I wanted to make sure I looked good for the occasion. As I stepped into the bathroom, I noticed the small, cramped space. I wanted to freshen up, maybe even take a quick shower. But as I turned to look in the mirror, I noticed something unsettling. There were dark stains on the wall, and when I flushed the toilet, the water rose to an inky black color, swirling ominously. My stomach dropped. I felt a wave of unease wash over me. What was happening here? Suddenly, all thoughts of a cozy evening with Dennis evaporated. I quickly changed back into my clothes, my heart racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. When I finally stepped out, Dennis glared disapprovingly at me. The warmth in his eyes had vanished, replaced by something darker. I felt a chill creep down my spine as he demanded to know why I was still wearing my old clothes. Panic surged through me, and I could sense that something had gone terribly wrong. In a heartbeat, I realized I had to escape. I pushed past him, but he lunged at me, grabbing the waistband of my pants. My heart raced as I struggled against his grip, adrenaline pumping through my veins. In a moment of instinct, I let go, allowing my pants to slide down my legs as I tore away from him. I sprinted for the door, the cool night air hitting my face as I burst outside, free from his clutches. As I dashed down the street, I could hear him yelling behind me, but I didn't look back. The panic coursed through my body, and I felt a surge of relief when I reached the main road. A few passers-by glanced my way, and while I noticed their looks of judgment, I was grateful for their attention. The more eyes on me, the safer I felt. I was desperate to blend in, to escape the nightmare I had just left behind. Once I reached a crowded area, I couldn't shake the fear of what could have happened had I stayed any longer. I immediately called the police, my hands shaking as I recounted everything I could remember. They assured me they would investigate, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that enveloped me. Days later, the truth emerged, and it was far worse than I had ever imagined. Dennis Nielsen was arrested for the horrific crimes he had committed. The man I had casually conversed with had lured young men to his home, where he had murdered them, often keeping their bodies for weeks. He had engaged in unspeakable acts with them before disposing of their remains in the very toilet I had just used. The revelation left me feeling sick to my stomach. I had been drawn to him, believing he was kind and charming, only to find that he was a monster, hidden beneath a friendly facade. At that moment, I realized how fragile safety could be. The darkness that lurked in people's hearts was often masked by smiles and friendly gestures.